Most people spend the first half of their life saying, I'm too young for that stuff, and the second half of their life saying, I'm too old for that stuff. You know, Tiger Woods was 3 years old when he first broke 50 for 9 holes of golf. Mozart was 8 years old when he wrote his first symphony. Anne Frank was 13 years old when she began her diary. Ralph Waldo Emerson was 14 years old when he enrolled at Harvard. Paul McCartney was 15 years old when John Lennon invited him to join a band. Bill Gates was 19 years old when he co-founded Microsoft. Joe DiMaggio was 26 years old when he hit safely for 56 consecutive games without steroids. It's extraordinary, isn't it? William Shakespeare was 31 years old when he wrote Romeo and Juliet. Thomas Jefferson, 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. Mother Teresa was 40 years old when she began her work in Calcutta. Pablo Picasso was 55 years old when he painted Guernica and began a revolution in the arts. Dom Perignon, 60 years old when he produced the first glass of champagne. Oscar Hammerstein, 64 years old when he wrote The Sound of Music. Winston Churchill, 65 years old when he became Britain's Prime Minister and picked the fight with Hitler. Nelson Mandela, 71 years old when he was released from more than 20 years in South African prison. 4 years later, at the age of 75, Mandela was elected President of South Africa. Michelangelo, 72 years old when he designed the dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. 24 years old when he carved the Pieta. Benjamin Franklin, 79 years old when he invented bifocals. And aren't you glad he did? Frank Lloyd Wright was 91 years old when he finished his work on the Guggenheim Museum. Dimitri Ordandis was 98 years old when he ran a marathon. And Arichi Raya was 100 years old when he climbed Mount Fuji.
Wednesday, drill holes, set poles. Set up work area, start prefab. And sort lumber. Thursday, frame platforms. Continue prefab. Start picnic tables. Start sanding and pre-drilling. Friday, install maze, more sanding. Install slides, more prefab. Saturday, install circular slides. Spread ground cover. Start balance beams. Finish vents. Complete outdoor seating. Don't forget to bring a wheelbarrow. Sunday, finish decks, complete trim. Finish sanding, install maze cap, more ground cover. Clean up and cut the ribbon. 5 days. This park was built in less than 60 hours, a few hours ahead of schedule. 100% of the construction was done by local volunteers, 2,400 of them. 100% of the funding came from private donations. It was raised in less than 9 months. People were so supportive that there was extra money afterward to give to the city for upkeep. All of this, the fundraising, recruiting volunteers, getting the word out, and the original idea for the park was spearheaded by one person, Augusta Bates. If all of this sounds extraordinary to you, it is. Most parks simply do not get built this way, and most people are not like Augusta. They don't believe they can bring this kind of change to their community, much less in such a short period of time. But perhaps the most amazing thing about all of this is that when Augusta Bates inspired everyone to make this happen, she was only 10 years old.
A little girl by the name of Augusta Bates, the daughter of former Mayor Brad Bates, decided that they wanted to go play at a park. So they drove up to Oakdale and spent the afternoon at the Oakdale Play Park.
When this project started, it was a 10-year-old young lady in Turlock who came forward and just asked the question on why we couldn't have a playground like they had in Oakdale that had been built by the community. And I think what was great about it was we couldn't answer her question.
And she said, well, if you were the mayor, how come we have to drive like 30 minutes to another town to play in a nice playground? Well, I realized that I may have been mayor for 2 terms, but in the eyes of my 10-year-old daughter, this was a fail.
This wasn't just a person saying fix something or do something. It was how can we build this?
Augusta started making presentations to various groups throughout the city, asking for donations and support.
A lot of times they would try and introduce me, and I would say, no, this is your speaker over here. And there was always a little bit of, question, concern, and Augusta would get up and, give her presentation just like she always did. And I always found it was just amusing because they really didn't expect a 10-year-old girl to pretty much take the podium and give the presentation and answer all the questions. And I pretty much, I was transportation and equipment. That was my job title.
I remember we were going into, I think it was Rotary.
And that's pretty much the traditional old school businessman. And my good friend Bill was the president.
He's like, okay, I have a joke for you. I want you to say this joke at the beginning. I'm like, okay.
Bill introduced her, and she turned to Bill and said, Bill, where are the cats? And he kind of looks at her with this wide-eyed, because Bill, he's in charge of a meeting with 150 businessmen, and he doesn't want things going off the reservation. So he said, well, Augusta, I don't understand. And she looks at him again, and she said, well, President Bill, where are the cats? And he says, Augusta, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And she turns and faces the audience, gives it that pause, and says, well, President Bill, my dad said this is where all the fat cats are, and I don't see any cats. And the room breaks up in laughter. And then from that point forward, let's just say that the Turlock Noon Rotary Club was a generous contributor to the Turlock Children's Play Park.
For the next 8 months, Augusta made over 20 more presentations to raise funds and recruit volunteers. Because most groups met during the week, she usually got to be excused from class.
So then I went and I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to have this stuff all set up. I would pull up and you would run from the office to the car. We would drive out there. Okay, hit your mark, give your pitch, get her done.
Back in class.
My belief was that Brad was not the puppet master behind the scenes getting this done. Where he very much could have been because of who he was, Augusta ran the show.
I was kind of jealous. I was like, I want to go talk to people and give these speeches about my ideas. But it was awesome that people actually stopped to listen to a 10-year-old girl.
Water jugs were placed in classrooms across town so that the people who would actually be using the park could contribute. Augusta and her friends also passed out collection jars to over 20 local businesses, raising over $1,000 for a donation of their own and getting the word out to even more people.
They were heavy when we were me and Augusta and our friend Jessica were trying to carry them.
Tile decorating days were announced, where kids and families were given the chance to design a tile that would go on the wall around the park for a donation of $25. Over 650 were sold.
And it took probably 3 or 4 weeks of Tuesday, Thursdays to get everybody in there, maybe 30 people at a time, and paint the tiles.
A local dentist held his own fundraiser, Smiles for Tiles. Patients donated $150 to the play park in exchange for teeth whitening.
So we donated our service and whitening materials, and people would come and get their teeth whitened. And I think we raised about $5,000 that way. And
the budget for the project was $75,000, but in only 9 months, without a single penny from a government or outside organization, the people of Turlock had raised over $90,000.
There was never, that I can remember, an experience where we got less than we were asking for, or so if that would have happened, then yeah, but
the Oakdale Park that originally sparked Augusta's question was built with the help of Leathers & Associates, a consulting firm specializing in projects that are funded, planned, designed, and built by the community.
Typical government might not be able to get out of its own way for a project like this, but Leathers & Associate, community groups working together are usually better able to move things forward, and then government's job becomes more of trying to figure out ways to get the obstacles out of the way to allow the citizens to become successful.
We had numerous youth meetings with the consultants and Augusta, and it was to develop the park, give their ideas, brainstorm, dream about what they'd like to see.
Augusta came to different classrooms and talked about it. They gave us each piece of paper, and then we got to draw on it what we wanted our playground to look like.
She made it so it wasn't her park. It would have been, and she's just a little girl, but obviously it was going to be our park. It was going to be for Turlock.
The consultants showed up, and the city guys were here, so there's like 3 or 4 city guys and the consultants. And the city guys walked right out there to the middle, and they said, okay, this is where the play park's going to be, right out here in the middle. And the consultants looked around, they're from New York, and they looked around, they look up, and they go, well, this is California, and it's hot, and that's sun. And they kind of look over and they point over here to where the trees were, and they say, no, it's going to be over there. And the city guy said, no, that's too close to the water, and it's this, and it's this, and you know. And the 3 consultants didn't say anything, they just walked over here, and like Pierre, the lead, he says, well, this is going to go here, and this is going to go here. And the city guys were still standing back over here, like, it has to. And that was it. They never argued, they never discussed. They just came over and started laying the park out. I thought this is going to be interesting. I like it.
Kids would be like, you're leaving again? Like, where are you going? Oh, I'm gonna go talk to the Rotary Club. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, after you say that 10, 15 times, and I don't know, I just felt kind of weird.
As Augusta grew tired of the extra attention, grown-ups began to wonder whether a 5-day construction plan was realistic. Materials included 700 pounds of deck screws, 65 gallons of wood sealer, and 5 miles of lumber. Each workday would be only 12 hours long, and the very first day involved digging 65 holes for 35-foot wooden posts. At least 150 volunteers would be needed for each shift, but some shifts only had 12 people signed up. And because liabilities kept the city from providing tools to volunteers, they would have to come from somewhere else.
None of us had ever been to this finish line. So every time a problem came up, we didn't always have the answer. In fact, we weren't even able to look 3 or 4 problems down the road because we'd never been down the road.
My impression was this was never going to work because it was just such a big feat to accomplish in such a short amount of time. And knowing from the city's perspective how long just putting a playground out and building it traditionally takes.
And I was skeptical that these people would come out from New York, and volunteers would build something of this magnitude.
Leathers and company were adamant that if you weren't finished on whatever date it was, you couldn't keep going, that you had to have it really done. So you needed the volunteers to really be there that week to make the project work.
The whole plan might have fallen apart had it not been for one thing: PR.
We really lucked out. We had television, we had a website, we also had a lot of press, newspapers and radio.
So at that time, I had a Sears dealer store, and I just thought it was just the perfect thing to do, and we have lots of tools. U.S.
Rentals brought a 18-wheel truck container of all the tools, and our local utility company, Turlock Irrigation District, agreed to come out with their auger and dig all the post holes.
Anytime there was a need, someone seemed to magically appear to offer it. Transportation of lumber, lighting at night, a daily newsletter, aerial photos.
The only connection is your community. It's not your church group, it's not your school group, it's not friends on the street. You have to open up and be trusting.
The day it was supposed to start, when I'm thinking, okay, maybe 20 people will show up, there were hundreds of people starting to show up.
Everybody knew about it by the time it happened. If you knew about it and you wanted to help, you were here.
It was a nice feeling, a good feeling to see everyone standing there, ready to go, excited, motivated.
Our whole family was there. My mom was there, my dad was there, my little brother was there, who was tiny at the time. And there was a place for all of us.
I would have probably been high school, junior high school, hammering nails and turning wrenches.
A local teacher spent her spring break supervising the youngest park volunteers.
We had a whole area where just the kids could come and just soap screws and sand, but it just made us feel, included in the process, and that, we're the kids and we're building the play park.
My youngest son he came out and hauled tools back and forth and helped me with my tools.
I worked on one of the slides. I'm not sure which one.
We have a cabin, and some trees needed to be cut up on the lot, and I learned how to use a chainsaw and I said, hey, I got some skills, I can use that at the park, and I was the chainsaw girl.
Turlock restaurants donated all of the food, while a local business owner coordinated feeding everyone.
You give them a job, you ask them, what can you do? What can't you do? I was assigned a lady, we estimated 80 years old. She wanted to come out and be a part of it. And I had her standing stuff.
I remember there was a woman, and she's holding a drill, and she's saying, I have never done this in my life. I've never used power equipment. And she said, you don't know how much it means to me to be given this responsibility and to be able to do this. I can do this.
I don't remember anyone getting mad, anyone throwing a fit. Nobody was too tired as a kid and was crying. Adults worked together.
Most people don't even know each other there. Right. And somebody from the volunteer booth, okay, come with me, and they take you to somebody you don't know who they are. Hey, welcome, how you doing? Let's work.
I met a lot of people that I still know, and made friends with people I didn't know. And
that's how I met Richard Frampton. We worked in the tools together, you know, and we've obviously become pretty good friends since then.
On the 5th day, the people of Turlock had turned $90,000 of their own money into the Turlock Children's Play Park, valued at more than $350,000. But this was more than a bragging opportunity for the most efficient fundraiser they had ever held, or their fastest build in city history of a 10,000 square foot facility. What they had really built on April 19th, 1998 was a community.
A lot of times, things that happen in a community for a park, or naming a facility, or running a program happen out of tragedy. Something happens, someone gets killed, someone gets hurt in an accident, something terrible happens, and we react to that. And many times the citizens look to their local government for government to solve kind of the problem looking forward. We don't want this to happen again, how can we do something differently? This project was very different. A project that's led and driven by the community, asked for by the community, put together by the community, expectations by the community, and government plays a supportive role to make that happen, are stronger long-term than many of the programs that we just run and expect the community to enjoy.
I think it helps keep the park in better shape. I think people have a pride in their facility.
When we have out-of-town visitors and they have kids that would benefit at this age, we take them down here. And they're usually amazed. Wow, how did you guys do this? And I said, well, funny you should ask.
I think the biggest thing is just that how empowering it was that this was like, you know, an idea from a 10-year-old and that people listened.
And as adults, we can always come up with 100 reasons. We do that all the time with our kids. You know, I want to do this. Well, no, you don't. And we give them all the reasons why they can't do it.
That is a time in a kid's life when they just they don't know what is possible and what isn't possible, and they'll try anything.
You know, it definitely motivates me now as an adult to go out and make stuff happen and have fun doing it. Hey Dad, how come we don't have a park like this? Turns into hundreds, thousands of people building a park.
It's not just one person that does these projects, you know, and I think that's the thing. It's not you have a sense of a community behind you, or you have your family behind you that's helping to lift you up to be able to accomplish these bigger goals.
I think we just all want each other to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. You know, I'm gonna cry. My mom's over there, she's probably crying too. You know, we all sit at this table and, you know, if somebody has something they're excited about, we talk about it. You know, whether it's my sister's new lab job or my dad's project or mom's retirement, like we're excited about each other, and I think that the world needs more of that. And this idea of a kitchen table and just real conversation. You know, it's not liking a Facebook post. It's that real face-to-face time, and just encouraging each other about life and what we want to do with it. Yeah.
Oh,